Alright, what is up, folks? So, over the course of the next couple months, I'm going to piss off a lot of people. I have to give you guys a trigger warning, because I woke up and drank the Kool-Aid. I mentioned before, I'm on my way to Philadelphia to attend the first Trump versus Harris debate. And obviously, over the course of the next couple months, I'll be covering a lot of topics that's related to this upcoming election. So I'm going to cover, obviously, feminism, immigration, refugees, LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, etc. So these topics, they can be considered extremely controversial to many people, and it's going to trigger a lot of people. I think this is the number one most important topic that we should be talking about for this upcoming election. However, the moderators for these major news networks, whether it's ABC or MSNBC or CNN or Fox News, they won't ask either of the candidates this question. I'm sure this topic has been brought up so many times. So all of us will witness the drastic political divide between modern men and modern women. Basically, what's happening is that all of the men are trending towards the conservative side, and all of the women are becoming liberal. They're all voting for the Democratic Party. And just to fact check this, so during the last election in 2020, 68% of unmarried women in America voted for the Democratic Party. They voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So I'm not talking about all men or all women, but the shift is definitely getting more drastic day by day. This means that dating, relationship, marriage will become almost impossible for the next generation, because men and women disagree on almost every single topic there is. We disagree on immigration, on refugees, on border control, on gun control, on abortion, on freedom of speech, and men and women are pretty much at war with each other on the political spectrum. So what the hell has happened? Well, I'll tell you guys one thing. Here's what happened. So I moved to Canada nearly 20 years ago. I've been living in the West for almost 2 decades now. And growing up in Canada, I was always told there's one thing that you must know, that there's absolutely no differences between man and woman, other than some physical differences. And I believe that this radical woke ideology has led to all of these chaoses. How can there not be any differences between man and woman? Listen, gender lives in the brain. It's not just a physical thing. As a matter of fact, in the past few years, the LGBTQ activists, they're saying that the gender actually is all made up. It's a social construct. It's whatever you feel like. So if I feel like I'm a woman, yes, I actually am a woman. In fact, they're saying that you can even identify as a dog or a cat. Heck, I might identify as a velociraptor starting tomorrow. So the number one issue started there. Growing up, ever since day one, whether it's in school, in social media, everywhere you go in your society, the thing that you're constantly be reminded of is that there are absolutely no differences between man and woman. So I'm going to share with you guys some of the biggest differences between man and woman. I'm not talking about physical, obviously. I'm talking about why gender lives in the brain. I want you guys to really think about this. Let's start with this, okay? I'm going to trigger a lot of people. Women will take things personally. And when I say things, I mean pretty much everything. Men do not take things personally. What do I mean? For example, how do you know if two guys are really close, if they're actually best friends? These two guys, they will insult each other. For example, a guy could say to his buddy, "Yo, dude, you're mad ugly, man. I think you're so freaking ugly. I think you look worse than Beetlejuice." Or sometimes if you're watching National Geographic together, if they see some wild exotic animal in the forest, and they say, "Oh, look, dude, look at that ugly ass looking fish. Look at that monkey that's swinging in the trees. That's you. That looks just like you." Guys do this all the time. Guys insult each other because they're best friends. It's a way to solidify their friendship. You will never ever hear this from a woman to another woman. Imagine this, if Rachel and Monica, if they're best friends, they've been best friends together since childhood, and they grew up together, they went to the same school, they went to the same university, and basically they're this close. They're at the point they can't live without each other. They're absolute best friends. Imagine one day if Rachel says to Monica, "Yo, Monica, listen girl, I think you're mad ugly. You're so freaking ugly, man. You look like a freaking pig. You look worse than Lizzo. You look like Hillary Clinton. You look like Elizabeth Warren. You look just like Nancy Pelosi. Oh my god, I think you look like a velociraptor." If a woman ever says that to another woman, that's the end. of a 20 years friendship. No, I'm serious. Go ask a feminist, for example. Ask them to describe what is a beautiful man. They will have no problem describing what is a beautiful man. Ask these feminists, how would you describe an ugly man? They will have no issue describing an ugly man. Ask them describe a beautiful woman, and they have no problem describing a beautiful woman. However, here is the checkmate. Ask these modern feminists, right? Ask them to describe a ugly woman. None of them will say anything. You will get total silence from these feminists. Here comes another major difference. I've talked about this many times before, but I want you to really think about it. I mentioned before that men love variety. A man's main goal in life, if he achieves financial success, is to have sex with as many female partners as possible. However, women do not enjoy variety. Women only enjoy having sex with one man. Why is that? I can tell you guys the exact reasoning behind this. For example, if you put together a group of a random man, if you ask them to sit in a room and you take away all of these men's phones, they have no access to internet, no access to their phones, no access to social media. You ask these groups of men to sit down, have a conversation, and see what these group of men will talk about. I can guarantee you that 95% of their thoughts are centered around these two things. Number one is sex. I can guarantee you that over the course of a man's lifetime, 80% of his thoughts are centered around having sex with women. So that is going to be number one. Then number two, 15% of a man's thought throughout his lifetime is going to be centered around sports. Everything else that happens in life, that maybe occupies 5% of man's brain. This is why modern men are willing to spend billions and billions of dollars on the porn industry, on things like OnlyFans. This is why a young woman with absolute zero talent, with absolute zero IQ for business, can simply get in front of a camera, strip herself naked, and live stream it to thousands of men, and she can make $1 million a year doing this, because 80% of a man's thought throughout his entire lifetime is centered around sex. This is why professional athletes can make $30 million, $40 million, $50 million a year playing sports, because the other 15% of a man's mind is centered around sports. Everything else makes up 5%. The same thing cannot be said about women. Women think very, very differently compared to men. So what do I mean by that? So if you ask a group of random women on the streets, if you put them inside of a room and ask them to have a conversation for an hour, obviously you take away their phone, take away their social media, take away their access to internet. And do you know what these women will talk about? These women, they do not think about sex. They do not think about sports. These women, they will go back to review conversations they had 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago. So I'll give you guys an example. Let's say if a man promised his wife 5 years ago that once he saved up enough money, he will take her to Vail, Colorado during the winter, where they will have an amazing skiing trip. And yes, the wife has been dreaming for this moment for the past 5 years. And when the husband finally saves up enough money, and his wife tells him that, oh, finally, honey, we have the money. Let's go skiing to Vail, Colorado. Listen, sometimes the man doesn't remember. For some odd reason, women seem to have a memory that is 10 times better than men. That is a fact. Men only remember the grand scheme of things. Men think the big picture. They remember macro. They remember the general concept. However, they're constantly missing out on the tiny little important details. Women, however, on the other hand, women remember everything. And I mean everything. So what explanations do I have for this? Well, do you guys know that old saying? Elephants never forget. Well, I think it's more than that. I don't think women are necessarily related to elephants. I think the fact that man simply cannot remember the details is because, like I said, 80% of a man's thoughts over the course of his lifetime is about sex, and the other 15% is about sports. Everything else only occupies 5% of man's brain. That's why he's struggling to remember these details. That's why there's so much conflict between man and woman. And ladies, you have to understand, sometimes, a man does stupid things. Sometimes he does forget. And he's not doing this intentionally to piss you off. It is really because men don't remember the details. Only women remember the details. Women will remember everything. And I'm talking about not just recently. I'm talking about going back 5, 10, 20, 30 years. This is why a woman's body count is so important. Listen, if a guy is a Giga, Chad, or Tyrone, if he has slept with more than 300 women, I can guarantee you this, he probably doesn't even remember half of them. However, if a woman has slept with more than 300 men, she will remember every single detail. She will remember the exact dates that these hookups happened. She will remember all of their names. In fact, she probably keeps a record on an Excel spreadsheet. She will remember how tall the guy was. She will remember what t-shirt, what jacket, what hoodie the guy was wearing that day. She will remember which motel or hotel that they stayed at. She will remember his occupation, his income. She will remember his length. She will remember his girth. She will remember every single detail. Maybe it's not floating on the top of her head, but somewhere deep down, maybe really, really deep down, if she wants to dig up this information, if she wants to sit alone in an empty room and go back to review the conversations, to go back to review the details, she will remember everything. That's why for women having a high body count, it is extremely detrimental. Only men can enjoy variety because men forget about the details. Men don't think about it. Men can have casual hookups and casual sex for fun. Women cannot because men do not remember. Men forget about it. And women remember everything. Everything. Remember that. Perhaps this point can be summarized using these two sentences. It's very simple. Okay, this is the drum roll moment. Men love women. Women, however, love a man. Remember that. And also, the reason why a man must be better than women on every single aspect on the socio-economic status, this is because socio-economically, women date horizontally and vertically up. Men date horizontally and vertically down. Despite what the feminists say, despite all they say about equality and everything, every single woman, when you ask these women to describe their dream man, they're all looking for the same thing. They want a high-value, successful man. They want a man that can provide. They want a man with a house. They want a man with a nice car, with a family van. They want a man that makes 6 figures. They like engineers. They like doctors. They like professors. They like lawyers. Every single woman is looking for a high-value man. That is why men must be better than women socio and economically. Another drumroll moment. Remember this. Men want the woman they love to admire them. However, women want to admire the man that they love. That is very, very important. Gender lives in the brain. It is extremely important to remember. Up until not that long ago, man and woman used to be referred to as the opposite sex because we really are the opposite sex. We think about everything differently. That's why there's a massive political divide. I mean, the differences are just endless. There's so much to cover. But the video is getting too long. I want to conclude this video with one final study. This is extremely important. So this is a study coming out of Harvard. They observed men's sports versus women's sports. 4 different sports in 44 countries. This is a very extensive study done by Harvard University, one of the best educational institutions in the world. And what they found out was that for men's sports, whatever happened during the course of the game, after the match has ended, after the competition has ended, men are far more likely to make peace versus women. You think that men like to play rough, men are physically more violent. In fact, that is not true. Sometimes men could be more physically violent during the match, but after the match, almost every single man, they will go in for a hug, they will go in for a handshake, they will say congratulations to each other, and whatever has happened during the match, after the game has ended, men in general want to make peace. However, the same thing cannot be said about women. Women are actually extremely vicious to each other, and even after the match is ended, women are far more less likely to make peace. They are far more less likely to actually go in for a handshake. They are far more less likely compared to men to actually congratulate each other, to pat each other on the back, to go in for a hug. And women are far more likely to physically assault each other during sporting events. Once again, this is a study done by Harvard, observing 4 different team sports across 44 countries. Men are more likely to make peace. Women are generally more physically violent towards each other. Why is that? I want you guys to really, really think about that. This means that women will have a hard time when they're trying to compete with other women. And I want you guys to think about feminism, empowering women, bringing women to the workplace. Listen, nobody likes going to work. However, for a woman, this is extremely important. Women really, really, absolutely hate working. So think about the same thing. It's when you're playing a sport, when you're trying to compete with the other team, the ultimate goal is to win, right? But when women have to compete with other women, they become absolutely miserable. The same thing happens when you bring women to the workplace. When they have to compete with other women in order to get a raise, in order to get a promotion, in order to climb the corporate ladder, they become extremely depressed, they become extremely pissed off, they become extremely miserable. And these are all the major contributing factors to why women are always unhappy today. You ask a modern woman today, 80 to 90% of these women, whether they're single, they're in a relationship, they're married, 80 to 90% of the women are simply not happy. They're always depressed, they're always miserable. And these are the two major contributing factors. Number one is that women do not like variety. Women only enjoy having sex with one man, and this is because men remember almost nothing and women remember everything. Number two is that they're bringing a record number of women into the workplace. And all of these have completely destroyed women. They have made women miserable. This is because women are simply much more nurturing. They prefer to stay at home. They prefer to stay in the kitchen. No, that's actually a biological fact. And when you try to bring women into the workplace, when they have to compete with other women, they will become extremely miserable. You have to remember that. And there's so much more to cover. I will come back to this topic over the course of the next couple months leading up to election day. I want you guys to really think about this video, the major differences between man and woman. And of course, I will discuss why women are more nurturing in the upcoming video. Thank you guys so much for staying till the end.